Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of Blake 7 Gaming's Gaming Vault, where we dive into the Blake 7 games of the past that we've made, have a look at them, have a chat about them, give a bit of a silly rating at the end, and just share some gossip and behind the scenes chit chat about why they came to be. This episode, we're opening the squeaky vault door and heading on in to have a look at a game that was made way back in sort of 2015, 2016, called Blake 7 the FPS. So come with me through the door. So our little story journey starts in 2015. For quite a while, up to that point, probably about 5 years, Blake 7 Gaming, as in making Blake 7 games, was dead. I had been making lots of sort of mods for existing PC games and bits and pieces, but there were no sort of real hardcore Blake 7 games being made. I was making a lot of other bits and pieces and keeping busy doing that, but none of them were sort of Blake 7 focused. And around this time in 2015, I'd actually made a game that was sort of at that point my most successful game I'd made. It had a couple of thousand downloads. Was a first-person shooter called Alpha Team that was kind of a blatant Wolfenstein ripoff. You walked around a secret Nazi lair taking out evil Germans and their horrible experiments and mutants and stuff like that in dark, scary environments with guns. And it was made for Android devices, so tablets and phones, using a package called FPS Creator. And that gave you the ability not only to build, but they had their own platform to publish games on. So provided people had the same app, they could download them. And after the success of the Alpha Team game, I thought it was time to actually have a go and do something Blake 7. So what was the game? So it was a first-person shooter. Blake 7 the FPS is what we called it, and it was built around four core storyline levels. So the first level was based on Saurian Major from Time Squad, and you had to go and attack the complex there and blow up the reactor and destroy the base, as we saw in the episode. The second mission was based around Redemption. So it was the system of boarded the Liberator. So it was a bit of defending the Liberator, and then you went on board Space World and destroyed that place as well. The third mission was based on Rumors of Death and was set in Servalan's palace on Earth. And the last level was set around Death Watch, and you were kind of playing as Taran in the one-on-one fight with Vinny. So it was almost like a massive, great boss battle. It was a really good, fun game to make. I really enjoyed doing it, but it had a lot of challenges that weren't really apparent until I got into it. You didn't really have the ability to make sort of cutscenes and storylines. So unless someone already knew what Blake 7 was and knew the backstory, it could be a bit hard for them to get to grips. But in terms of the making of it, it was relatively easy. I did things like I brought over the Federation Trooper sprite from the previous game we talked about, the old PlayStation first-person shooter I tried to make. He came back just because I needed a sprite to test, and he ended up never leaving. So you'll see some images here of him wandering around. So he's been quite a mainstay of Blake 7 games over the years, and it's been a bit of a joke ever since. But there are some other limitations as well. You couldn't import sound effects or music, so you could only use the catalogue of what was there. So it was a bit annoying that I couldn't have the actual sort of sounds from the show in there. And because you could only put it out via their own sort of app store, it made reaching wider people quite difficult. But still, it was a great fun experience to do. I was really pleased with how some of the levels turned out. I did like the Saurian Major one was great with the pink sky and the fleshy plants. Servalan's Palace I rather enjoyed because I was doing sort of the layout more or less as it was done in the show. It all felt very old school Wolfenstein, old school Doom, collect keys, open doors. Yeah, I had a good time doing it. So how did it do? It actually did really, really well. We had over 450 downloads. It was hard to keep track because there was a bit of an issue where the game was taken down off their store a couple of times. It seemed to be when it reached a certain number of stuff on the store, things got dropped off. So I had to keep uploading it again after a certain amount of time. But it was in the region of, certainly at one point, the count was up to 452 downloads, which at the time was by far our most successful Blake 7 themed game, which was great. And generally, it got quite a good lot of feedback from people because they've got like a rating system on there. It did quite well. So that was brilliant. So what's the verdict on it? I'm going to try and be honest about my thoughts on the game, how well it did, how well representative of Blake 7 it was, and we're going to do a bit of a silly out of 5 Golden Liberator score. So out of 5, I'm going to give the game 2 out of 5, 2 Golden Liberators. My reason for doing that is it was good. It was great to do it and everything, but it did have, like I say, some issues. You know, the fact that you couldn't put in the sound effects, they weren't right. The fact that there wasn't a lot of context for people that might not know what Blake 7 was, that was quite tough. I tried my best to put in a bit of narrative by literally writing on textures, which you'll see on the video there, to try and give a semblance of storyline, but it wasn't perfect. So it was a great start. Glad I did it. And I'm glad some people got to play it, and we did get some really lovely feedback. And it certainly proved to me that there was still an appetite for Blake 7 games out there. So it did make me continue on, really. A sequel, yeah, there was a drive to make a sequel after that. So I did actually get started on that. So there are some screenshots still around of a sequel game, because one of the problems with the previous one was that there was quite a hard limit on the amount of sprites and objects you could create. So I did reach that limit with the first game. I couldn't add, it wasn't I didn't want to do more levels, I couldn't add more. I'd have to make a whole new project. So I thought, fine, taking what I've learned, what I want to do, I'll do a whole new project, which is what I did. So I started working on a sequel. The first level of which was going to be based upon the episode Shadow. So I did a bit of making Space City on there. So there were some corridors of Space City, there were some dream heads, there were some enforcers. And the next level would be teleporting down to Zondar, moon discs, desert, thermal suited troopers, all of that. And that got, reasonably advanced. I also started making a level that there aren't sadly any surviving screenshots of, that was based around Star One. So it would have been the surface of the Star One planet into the complex. There was going to be a bit of a boss fight at the end with Travis, who I did make, and equally the Travis sprite himself went on to appear in later games. But it didn't get beyond having the rough shells of sort of 3 levels. It didn't go any further, mainly because it was such a chore to give people a sense of storyline in the games. And also, I had, just at the point I was making this, I'd stumbled upon another platform that would allow me to do even more, that would allow me to make slightly different games, which is what I then went on to do. I tripped straight into making a series of games all called Blake 7 the Game, which were episodic, which I released games based on individual episodes. But that is very much a story for another day. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little insight into Blake 7 the FPS. It was a good game. It got some great downloads, and it certainly did open the door to do more Blake 7 games. I hope you found it interesting. Take care. See you soon. Bye bye.